forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Olivia Guthrie in the GB newsroom. The war in Ukraine has dominated the Conservative Party Spring Conference, with the Prime Minister saying Russia's president launched the invasion because he fears a free and democratic nation as his neighbour. Boris Johnson told the Tory faithful Vladimir Putin is panicking about the prospect of a revolution in Moscow.
He was frightened of Ukraine because in Ukraine they have a free press. And in Ukraine, they have free elections. And with every year that Ukraine progressed, not always easily, towards freedom and democracy and open markets, he feared the Ukrainian example, and he feared the implicit reproach to himself. Because in Putin's Russia, you get jailed for 15 years just for calling an invasion an invasion. And if you stand against Putin in an election, you get poisoned or shot.
Meanwhile, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss told the Forum the crisis in Ukraine has shown the strength of the free world.
Putin's illegal, unprovoked invasion of Ukraine has shattered the notion that freedom is free. We cannot stand by and see these precious freedoms eroded and the clock turned back to the horrific oppression of the Soviet era. We cannot and we will not rest until Ukraine's sovereignty is restored.
Foreign Secretary Liz Truss. Well, the Defence Secretary Ben Wallace told GB News Russia needs to be judged by its actions, not its words.
As the Prime Minister said, the problem is if he's successful in Ukraine, it won't stop there, because in his own articles and speeches, he effectively lays claim to the Baltic states and other parts of what was either once the former Russian Empire or the Soviet Union. And I think it's really important people understand that when you have a president who writes and speaks like he does about sort of ethnic nationalism, and that he has sort of rights over them, then we should all worry for our own security. It's that type of language that led to the Second World War.
Defence Secretary Ben Wallace there. In Ukraine, the prosecutor's office says 112 children have been killed since the start of the Russian invasion. In the east, the governor of Luhansk says the humanitarian corridor is being opened for residents trying to evacuate the region. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for face-to-face talks with his Russian counterpart, telling Vladimir Putin it's time for comprehensive and meaningful negotiations.
I want everyone to hear me now, especially in Moscow. The time has come for a meeting. It is time to talk. The time has come to restore territorial integrity and justice for Ukraine. Otherwise, Russia's losses will be such that it will take several generations to recover.
Meanwhile, the mayor of Kyiv has been filmed visiting troops in the region. Video released by Vital Klitschko's office shows the former boxer speaking to military officials and walking through the trenches. In other news, a murder investigation has been launched after a teenager was killed in central London. The 19-year-old was found at a student accommodation in Clerkenwell. Officers responded to reports of a woman suffering injuries, but she died at the scene. P&O Ferries has resumed services between Liverpool and Dublin after sacking 800 staff on Thursday. It comes as a maritime union, Nautilus International, urged the government to revoke the ferry operators' licences in British waters. In a letter to the Transport Secretary, the union also called for any taxpayer money received during the pandemic to be returned. Investigators are trying to determine the cause of a US military air crash in northern Norway. 4 people were on board the Marine Corps aircraft, which was taking part in a NATO military exercise when it went missing yesterday. Syria's president has made his first trip to an Arab state since the war began in his country 11 years ago. Travelling to the United Arab Emirates, President Bashar al-Assad met Abu Dhabi's Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in a sign of strengthening ties between the two nations. The US has reacted, saying it's profoundly disappointed and troubled by the apparent attempt to legitimise the Syrian leader. And the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's Caribbean tour has been marred by a local protest. William and Kate cancelled a trip to a farm in Belize after residents voiced their opposition to the visit. The royal couple's on an 8-day tour, which also takes in Jamaica and the Bahamas in honour of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. We're on TV, online and on DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. We'll have more news at the top of the next hour. We'll see you then.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry and clear, though turning chilly and remaining windy in the west. Let's take a look at the details. After a sunny but windy day in the southwest this evening, winds will ease, but it will turn a little cloudier across the south, clearer in the north, but feeling cooler. In the southeast, it will be a breezy end to the day, but cloudless skies will continue, still feeling cooler in the breeze along the coast. Moving over to South Wales, where we can expect this evening to be dry and fine, but breezy still and chilly off sunset. Now moving north to the Midlands, tonight will be dry with clear skies, though over the hills and in the east a fresh breeze will continue to bring a colder feel. Moving on to northeast England now, breezy on the hills this evening, but clear and dry for all. There could be the odd spot of fog in the valleys, and it will continue to feel cold. Across southern Scotland, it will also be a clear and dry night with the odd misty patch. However, over hills it will turn increasingly windy this evening. Finally, to Northern Ireland, a windy but clear evening. So if you are planning on enjoying the last of the sunshine here, you'll likely need a layer or two. For many, it will remain clear overnight with a touch of frost by the morning, but cloud will increase in some western areas. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Good morning, it's the Saturday selection on GB News with Esther and Philip Davis. Coming up, we'll be looking back on the biggest stories of the week. We speak next to legendary cartoonist Bob Moran, and GB News political correspondent Tom Harwood is live at the Conservative Spring Conference in Blackpool, where we'll hear from the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, Home Secretary Priti Patel, plus the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. You can also let us know your thoughts and your reactions to their speeches. GB Views at gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews.
Right, it's time to take a closer look at the week's top stories with the help of Frank McKenna, who is the founder of Downtown in Business. Frank, thanks for joining us today. What's caught your eye this week?
Well, there's been lots of talk, of course, about the forthcoming statement from the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, and we polled our members, about 1,000 of them, small, medium enterprises across the country, asking them what they thought of some of the plans that had previously been put forward by Rishi. And over 70% of them, probably not surprisingly, are saying that the national insurance rise that is due in April ought to be postponed. Several reasons for that. Firstly, the budget deficit that he was anticipating having isn't as bad as he thought, so the economy has actually bounced back quicker than he'd thought it would, and therefore it does give him a bit of wriggle room. But of course, what we couldn't have anticipated when that announcement was initially made back in October time was the Ukrainian war, inflation, the issues that we all know about in terms of energy costs, fuel costs, and coming down the tracks for businesses, of course, increases in the living wage, minimum wage, and lots of other things and pressures of costs for business. So I hope that the Chancellor recognises that both from an individual perspective, but also from business growth opportunities, he needs to review that decision about national insurance, because it's going to hit business and hit people in the pocket really hard.
I totally agree. I mean, I don't know if you, I totally agree. I mean, I think Rishi keeps saying that he believes in tax cuts. He's a Thatcherite who believes in tax cuts. If you're not going to cut taxes in a cost of living crisis, when are you going to cut taxes? I mean, people are really going to struggle to pay their bills this year. Like you said, whether it's petrol, whether it's energy, just cost of living generally, food, etc. The people really can't stomach another tax hike at that time.
I think this is a big moment for Rishi. I mean, if you look in all the papers today, it's got like tax tensions between Boris, Rishi and also Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's coming out saying, no, don't forget you're Conservative guys. We don't believe in increasing taxes. We want it down. Highest taxes in 70 years. What are you doing? I'd say, I mean, it's very much being painted the picture that Rishi is the one wanting to go forward with the national insurance contribution. We've paid out so much money because of, they say, COVID. I say because of lockdown. Many of us were saying come out of lockdown. So they've given out lots of money. Yes, they have. But you cannot make it more difficult for the individual, as Philip's saying, with the cost of living. As you're saying, you can't make it more difficult for businesses because who have you got to keep the economy going? What are you doing to your population? So I'd say, Rishi, really, you cannot, I mean, we really cannot let this national insurance contribution increase go ahead.
And I think he's also got to look at the net zero agenda a bit more pragmatically as well. There's a 16% levy at the moment for green taxes. Now, again, if you look at the environment that we're operating in, forgive the pun, then you've got to accept that given the cost of fuel at the moment, he needs to do something to help. And again, the £250 loan, or whatever it is he announced a while back.
It is that complicated, Frank. It is that complicated.
It just doesn't cut the mustard, though, does it? When he can simply say, OK, for a year, whilst we're going through what is a cost of living crisis, I'm going to abandon those plans because actually the net zero agenda is something that's long-term anyway, and we can revisit it. People are struggling now. Businesses are struggling now. And if you're wanting, the entrepreneurs of this country and the business owners of this country to invest in people, in jobs, then give us a break.
It's a double whammy, isn't it, for people who own a business, because they've got the cost of living crisis for them personally in their own households, but they've also got exactly the same cost of living problems for their business.
Absolutely.
Whether it's fuel, doing the deliveries to them, the energy that they use in their shops, and now the national insurance increase. So small business owners, they're getting a double whammy of cost of living crisis for their business and for themselves.
And I was in one of my locals yesterday, Stanley Arms at Anderton. Read into that what you will. But anyway, I was speaking to Moira there, and she was just saying the cost for pubs as well. You've got business rates, as you say, you've got employment wages sort of increase, you've got national insurance contributions increases, but for them, the energy bill, I don't think people have quite understood how huge that energy bill is, and some of them can't get deals, some of them might not even get guarantees that they're getting the energy. I mean, it's a big issue, and government really has got to understand it, haven't they?
Anyway, on a different tack, if people wanted to have helped to pay for their cost of living crisis, then this week was the week to have a go at it, because it was...
Or not, Frank, can I tell you, or not.
The Cheltenham Festival, which is my favourite week of the year, I have to say. And last week, we did a preview of Cheltenham, and Cornelius Lycett, the famous racing broadcaster told everybody to back Constitution Hill in the first race at Cheltenham, which won.
Can I just stop us just here briefly? No. Philip calls us up from Cheltenham and says, got great news for you, got great news for you. And I said, oh, yes. He said, Cornelius was right. Constitution Hill won. And I said, great, because I asked you to back it. And I said, so what did you? So, oh, I forgot to do that. I said, so which bit of this phone call, Philip, is good news? Yeah. It won, but you're not getting any money.
I'm leading with my chin here, Frank, as you can tell with this. But what I wanted to focus on from the week at Cheltenham was Rachel Blackmore, the jockey. Absolutely amazing jockey. I mean, she was the first woman jockey to ride the winner of the Grand National last year. I was reminiscing that when Red Rum won his third Grand National in 1977, Ginger McCain said that no woman should ever be allowed to ride in the Grand National under any circumstances at all. Rachel Blackmore won the Grand National last year, and yesterday at Cheltenham, she was the first woman jockey to win the Cheltenham Gold Cup. An amazing achievement. And she's an absolutely wonderful jockey. And not many times does sport get from the back pages to the front pages. Apart from when it's bad news, usually, there's a scandal or whatever. But Rachel Blackmore, she's there, page 2 and page 3 of the Daily Star today, but also a little teaser on the front page. She's on the front pages of most of the papers. First woman to
Well, it is exceptional, isn't it? Amazing. And that is, men and women can be judged exactly the same. They were all racing there. I mean, to win the Grand National, the Gold Cup, by anybody is incredible. And for her to win, that's outstanding.
Yeah, and she's a wonderful person as well, lovely person. And I mean, she just says, I don't see myself as a female jockey. I see myself as a jockey.
Yes.
And do you follow Cheltenham? Did you have a bet at all?
I didn't have a bet this year, although I usually do sort of Cheltenham Aintree, the sort of big races. I'm not a massive follower of horse racing. Love the occasion, love the day out. Chester Racecourse, as you will know, is a wonderful place as well. Often visit there. More for the corporate hospitality.
I was going to say that. Frank has lots of his business events in places like the Chester Racecourse or Aintree or Haydock's, another one you use. Well, I thought we'd have a completely different story here. Caught my eye in the week, made me smile. And it was, what does your tummy say about you? And with that, we all breathe in, don't we? We all sit up and breathe in. So I want to ask you...
What is it going to say about me? I think that's the key question we're going to get.
Does your tummy feel like a cushion? So that's at the front there, a bit cushiony at the front, and at the back, a bit cushiony. I call that muffin top. So if it does, could be a hormonal tummy there, and you need to reduce your sugar, your processed foods, dairy, alcohol and caffeine. Or have you got a round and protruded stomach?
Why are you looking at me?
Well, both of you have gone silent. Both of you have gone silent so far.
I'm feeling inadequate. Frank's slim. I'm sort of trying to...
So none of us have got a round and protruding, because this
I've got all of these.
This is the beer tummy, basically, beer and alcohol, so you've got to reduce that. Or have you got a bloated tummy? Any? No bloated tummy. OK, well, that is usually digestive disorders. But, of course, what I've got with my two gentlemen in the studio with me is obviously the six-pack stomach.
Oh, obviously,
perfect specimens.
Exactly.
But anyway...
Are they all supposed to be... Are they alternatives? Because I seem to have all of the first three of those. I seem to have a cushion... I had a cushion, a tummy and bloated.
Well, basically, you've just got to give up all food or alcohol or coffee or whatever for the foreseeable future.
My little girl, Grace, tells me mine's a bit cushiony. Certainly in comparison to your mum, so I've still got work to do.
Oh, very good. Now, look, we've got a great cartoonist coming on, but there was two cartoons I wanted to show you, Frank, somebody who runs this sort of big business group right across the country. And it's Bob Moran here, and we've got, I think, two of his cartoons. There we go. Look at that. It was just, I thought it was relevant to what we're saying here. Boris Johnson pushing Rishi on a swing higher and higher, talking about tax. And here we've got a scientist looking underneath a microscope. Look, I found it, I've done it, yes, I've found the economy. And this is really, I mean, what cartoonists are all about, aren't they? Encapsulating what is in the news in a humorous way. But I thought you would appreciate them.
Very accurate, actually, in terms of what the country's thinking at the moment as well, in terms of the economy. For the first time many a year, people are starting to say they don't trust the Conservative government with the economy. So there's real messages coming from business and the general population in terms of the direction Rishi's taking. He really does need to be careful, because I think I said last time I was on this programme, you know, when are we going to get a Conservative government? My politics are not necessarily that way inclined. But I'm looking at the situation at this moment in time and thinking, even as somebody who would describe themselves as perhaps New Labour, or some people say Blue Labour, I wouldn't be looking at increasing taxes at this moment in time. There are times when you've got to invest in the economy. There are times when you've got to acknowledge that actually the best way out of a crisis is to allow businesses and people to manage their own cash. And
Absolutely. We're like the sort of an inner group within the Conservative Party, so aren't we the rebels? The only people voting against it, saying, no, come back to your roots, keep the taxes down. So we're absolutely with you. But anyway, we're going to go on to our next guest. Frank, thank you very much indeed for being here, founder of the Downtown Business Groups.
Now, are you a good drawer? If so, you may be interested in a job advert from The Guardian, which is looking for a cartoonist. It asks, though, if you are from an underrepresented group, race or gender or disability, then if you are, you're encouraged to apply. Now, is this a form of positive action? Is it a form of positive discrimination that cartoonists would normally mock in their work?
To find out if so, we're joined by multi-award-winning cartoonist Bob Moran. Bob, are you going to apply? You're not with the Telegraph at the moment. Are you going to apply?
Morning, Esther. Morning, Philip. Yeah, what a great idea. Do you think I ought to apply? I'm not sure I fit their criteria, though. That's the problem.
Well, you've been there before, though, haven't you? And I was interested in looking at where you've done your cartoons for, because you've been The Guardian, you've been The Telegraph. I mean, do they ask what your political persuasions are, or are you just there to pop a shot at what's going on full stop?
Yeah, I actually started my career working for the Morning Star, which some people know about, extremely left-wing socialist newspaper. Then I went to The Guardian, and then I ended up getting a job at the Telegraph. But my approach to this has always been to leave my own personal politics out of it. I mean, I'm not actually that political, which surprises some people, but I think if you want to be a good cartoonist, you need to be able to adopt that neutral stance and look at whoever has done something worthy of criticism on a particular day, and that's who you target in your cartoons.
I'm surprised that you say you're not political. I mean, I see, because I guess I find it's the ultimate in free speech in a way. You've managed to get a whole story in a picture, so it's free speech, you're pushing the boundaries, it's humour, but I'm surprised you don't have a political opinion.
It's not that I don't have a political opinion, and this is something that has obviously changed quite a lot over the past couple of years, because I was always able to put my own opinion to one side to an extent and think about what do the readers of the newspaper think about this issue. You know, what are the editors saying is going to be in the rest of the paper. You can't focus entirely on what your view is. During lockdowns and the whole COVID situation, that changed a bit, because I wasn't really able to put my own feelings to one side. So it's been different in that respect.
Bob, do you get an editorial steer when you're a cartoonist for a newspaper? Does the editor say, look, I want you to focus on this particular story, or I want you to focus on this particular message, or do you have free rein to go for absolutely anything that you want?
No, you don't. You don't get completely free rein. I mean, it varies from day to day. Sometimes you'll get a bit of a steer. Generally, the idea is that you are supposed to know what the main stories will be and what needs to be said about them. And you'll have a conversation with the editor and say, look, this is what I'm thinking, and send in a rough sketch. And usually, hopefully, they will say, yeah, that's great, go ahead. On some days, you will get told, actually, no, we want to leave that now. We think people are bored of that, or there's something big happening later that you'll need to focus on. So it varies a bit. But I mean, what I would just say about that Guardian advertisement for a job, I mean, firstly, as far as I know, I think it's the first time a job for a cartoonist has ever been advertised. It doesn't generally happen like that. But to do this job and do it well, and I don't want to sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet here, this is just how it is. First of all, there aren't many people who want to do it. It's quite a strange thing to want to do. And secondly, to be able to do it and do it well to the highest level, you need a combination of very specific skills. You know, you've got to be a good drawer, as you guys said. good at cartoons. You have to be able to come up with original ideas on a daily basis. You've got to be able to work very, very fast under intense pressure. You have to be able to take direction from editors. You've got to be able to understand an audience, a readership. You've got to develop your own visual language and style. So there aren't many people out there with all of those things, and you need to have all of them if you want to do the job and do it well. So if you're a newspaper looking for a new cartoonist, your options are already very, very limited. And to limit your options even further by needing all these other boxes ticked, to be honest, it seems bonkers to me.
Well, the thing about this advert that struck me, Bob, I'm just looking at it here, is that all those things that you said, the qualities that you need, none of those are actually listed in this advert. To be perfectly honest. So they're not further restricting the scope of people. They're ignoring all that kind of stuff that you've said about being able to draw and work under pressure and all that kind of stuff. It seems to be that all you have to do is be an underrepresented group for your race, gender, disability, age, sexual orientation, or religion, or come from a socially or economically disadvantaged background. Now, I just wondered, it begs the question really, as to whether or not that's going to make you a good cartoonist, Lord only. Time will tell, I guess. But I suppose the question is, that may be asked in politically correct circles, is are cartoonists, do they tend to be pale, male and stale? Is there a problem with diversity amongst cartoonists? And if so, does it really matter, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, as far as cartoonists go, I'm pretty diverse. I am a minority group simply because I'm not in my 70s. And a lot of people assume that I am, and because I'm 35 years old, that does make me stand out a bit. So you're right. For whatever reason, most successful cartoonists are middle-aged to elderly men who are white, and they've been doing their jobs for a very long time. That's just the way it is, But as I say, there are a tiny, tiny percentage of people in the whole world who have the desire to do the job and then all of the skills required. I can't tell you exactly why none of those people are black, or they're women, or they're disabled, or whatever else. It just so happens that they've all ended up being stale and pale.
Bob, this could be it. We might be having to ban the job. It might be that there is no jobs left. There will be no cartoonists left if all there is white, sort of pale, male, stale, whatever, but obviously humorous, irreverent, and absolutely prepared to challenge what's going on. I know we've got to go. I'd like to have you back on the show again because some of your cartoons I would love you to explain a little bit more. So please, this is a request to come back on and see us soon. Thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed.
Thanks, Esther. Thanks, Philip. Thank you.
So coming up, we take a look at how we might increase food production due to an ever-increasing world population. That's coming up. Plus the man who gave us Blondie, Spandau Ballet, and Jethro Tull, Chris Wright, co-founder of Chrysalis Music. He joins us for our regular feature, If I Rule the World. So don't go away.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask,
so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to the Saturday Selection with Esther and Philip. Have you given much thought to the food you eat, where it comes from and how it's made?
I'm always thinking about food. Food production on a global scale is a major operation, and with the world population reaching 10 billion by 2050, food analysts say that we're going to need 50% more produced.
You may have already heard of plant-based burgers, 3D steaks, vegan sausage rolls. You may even eat them. But what will you be eating in the next couple of decades in order to increase food production?
Joining us now is Jim Laird, Chief Executive of Enough Food. Morning, Jim. And, you know, it is, a big topic of conversation. What is the future of food? What will be happening? I'm reading in it now as well, front page of the Times magazine with a big item here. Funny enough, they're talking about vertical farming. But what you're doing really is alternative protein. So just tell us what that is. Some people will be thinking, what, Frankenstein food? What is it, Jim?
Hi, Esther. Hi, Phil. Thanks so much for having me on. The food market, you've just kicked it off. The food market is very personal to us all. We've all got this massive say in what the future looks like. And I guess for me, future of food probably centres on that. What's the future of protein? Because protein's at the heart of how we all consume, and it's at the heart of family life. And we've all eaten vast amounts of animal protein over the last years. It's a massive market, as you've just said, and it's more than tripled probably in our lifetimes. So what we're doing, we're making food from fermentation, and we think that's just one of the most sustainable options. But I think what we celebrate is the fact that we need a wide range of choices, and very simply, we need things that taste good and that consumers can trust, and they know what it is. I think it's an exciting market. I think it's one of the biggest markets in this world.
Right, you say food from fermentation. I'm being honest with you there, that's not sounding appealing. We might all say, but we drink alcohol that way. So just explain a little bit using maybe food you understand. Like I do eat corn, and I'll eat corn, sort of picnic, sort of eggs. That's actually my favourite. But what is fermentation food?
So I think that it just on that you eat picnic eggs, and we eat things that we recognise, and we eat things that we trust. And you'd say a picnic egg, but a picnic egg without the gristly bits of the pig in there. We trust that. So fermentation takes any sugar and it converts it. Fermentation is used to make beer. It's used to make yogurt. So it's used to make many of the things that we do trust. What we take is any fermentable sugar, and it just grows, and it grows protein and fiber very quickly. So by converting fungi. So fungi naturally have protein and fiber in them, and it just converts the sugar into protein and fiber. It does it in a very simple process. It does it very efficiently. So where a cow would take 18 months to be fully reared, within that same timescale, within our single fermenter, we will make roughly 60,000 cows worth of protein, because we don't use many resources. It uses the sugar, and the sugar just needs a bit of it. The sugar is the source of the fungi to grow protein and fiber.
So,
wow.
I understand the benefit of it from an efficiency point of view, from helping to feed the world point of view, but as somebody who likes their food and who's just been made fun of for the size of their stomach, Jim, how does it compare from a taste perspective? I mean, when you do tastings, presumably you must do taste tests with consumers.
Unless we make the picnic eggs or the sausages or the burgers or whatever our food of taste is, then we won't grow. And we can, and we do. And just picking up on that last piece, the food system is a global food system. When things like canal barges get stuck in the Suez Canal, our food system fractures, And it's an interesting point. 40% of global white meat or white fish, cod, haddock, pollock, etc., comes from Russia. And so it is this global system, and food security is important. But I think before the point of the consumer, food security is a massive point. And I think just that last piece just brings it back to us again, that unless we have sustainability in our food system, sustainability by being able to have things on shelf that we all like, then we're in crisis. And I think it's telling that as we see any global crisis on your news program and elsewhere, the first thing that hits anybody is there food on the supermarket shelf? And it has to be availability first of all, and then things absolutely that we all love. I've not deliberately ducked your question. I think our food does taste great. I think as we look at how do we mitigate the fact that 40% of the global cod market cannot come to these shores, we can make a great vegan cod. We can make a great vegan tuna. And in terms of taste tests, I'd love to get some on your show and let you be the judge.
We'll certainly munch on that. As I said, I am somebody, I'd call myself a flexitarian. So sometimes I'm eating meat, sometimes I'm eating beans and pulses. And what surprised me most is when I saw some of the figures, because I was looking at corn, because all of this is a great British invention, and they were around from 1985. And I think they said there was more meat eaters eating this non-meat, as it were. But why I was interested in what you're doing, I know you set up this new Alternative Protein Association, but it is a great British invention what we're doing here. We are sort of leading the world in this sort of new food alternative proteins, and I really want to sort of champion and shout out and cheer up what our sort of inventors and scientists are doing.
I'm with you, Esther, and it is through the late 80s, through the 90s, UK-led food tech, and I think with entrepreneurs and absolutely with investors, we still lead this market. And as consumers, we are, I think, more advanced than any other market. But it's also true that other markets are moving faster. Israel, the Netherlands, San Francisco, Canada. There's lots of markets where I guess a collective messaging from governments and from regulatory bodies encourages a pace of a growth where we don't want to get left behind. And to do that, we need the voice of government. We need the voice of retailers. And I think retailers are championing this space as well. We need the voice of the media, and I think the media is equally. None of us are blind and can't walk down the high street without seeing that consumers are already craving those vegan choices and vegetarian choices.
Look, I will say goodbye in a moment, but I guess the thing that saddens me most is that, yes, we're the biggest, largest market in this food by 419 million, Germany second half of that. We are ahead of the world in the inventions, but the biggest now manufacturing site is going to be in the Netherlands because we can't get it done here, as you say, because of the regulation. So that breaks my heart because that should be here. And on GB News, we're going to champion that we get this invention and get this manufacturing, get these jobs here, and I know you're at the forefront. So, Jim, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. And that's a campaign we're going to start.
Right.
We want it back
right. You heard
in
it
this
here
country.
First. You heard it here first.
And as well as speaking to Jim, who's at the forefront of this new food, we're also going to hear from a celebrity chef. You'll know her, Leslie Waters. She joins us now. She's also got a great cookery school too. Now, look, all of these things are coming on the market. Leslie, you and I know each other from a long time ago. She's got some of the best. In fact, some of the food you eat, if you be honest, is Leslie's recipes from a long time ago. So here we are. There's a reason that we've got these new sort of meats and these new proteins coming on board. How do we cook them to make sure they're flavoursome? I know everybody went out and bought Greg's with vegan sausage rolls, the biggest seller ever. They all ran out. But how do we make them tasty, Leslie?
I think, it's the old spices. If you think of corn, it actually hasn't really got a lot of taste, but it's got a fantastic texture. I remember when it came out in 1985 as well. I can't believe it's that long ago, but it absorbs flavour. So you can use your spices. You can go down the sort of Mediterranean route. You can go down the Asian route by using spices, by changing it. But also, I think it's all about balance. And I think that these foods are fantastic for people to enjoy, but I also think it's about getting the balance right. So I think, using nuts, pulses, lentils, beans, what I call real food, so that you can enjoy these meat alternatives maybe once or twice a week. You can enjoy vegetarian. Perhaps you only have meat once a week or once every 2 weeks, but you buy the best meat that you can buy. So we cut out all of that buying loads of meat. And I think for me, as a chef, it's always about balance. And I know that sounds boring, but that's what I really do believe. In my household, we eat vegetarian, we eat vegan, we have fish very occasionally, we have meat occasionally, so we mix it up. And I love using spices. As I said before, the wonderful thing about these meat substitutes is they absorb flavours very, very easily.
You are never boring, Leslie. That is not a word I would ever use for you.
It's a worry for me, Leslie, what you've said. I love eating meat. My granddad was a butcher. He'd be turning in his grave if he heard you say that we should only eat meat once a week or something. It's been a depressing message for me to hear this morning, I can tell you.
But I remember growing up...
I'm sorry.
I remember growing up and you would have only had meat sort of once or twice a week. You would have had the joint on Sunday and then you would have cooked it into...
I remember, having a roast chicken on a Sunday with Mum and Dad, and then the next day we'd have, a bit of chicken broth or roast beef on a Sunday and dripping on toast the following day.
Oh, that sounds more like
I'm going back a long time, I hasten to add.
That, Leslie.
But the other thing, cooking this meat is very different as well. I remember my dad coming off red meat, because lots of people have got, whether it's intolerances now or wanting to change the diet or have less of this, that, or the other. And I tried to cook him, I think it was a bolognese or something with one of these sort of meats. And it's totally different. You don't cook it for hours like you would cook meat. You cook it in a couple of seconds. I have to say, I had to throw the full dish away. It was revolting. So quick tips on, it is quicker, is it easier, is it cheaper on the old gas and electric?
It's quicker. Read the instructions. Don't just open the packet and think, I know what to do. Because, we get a lot of men doing that, no offence. So read the instructions. Yeah, they're there for a reason. You don't need to cook things as long. Sometimes it's just stir frying it for like a minute or two and then adding your flavours. And try and be imaginative, think, for instance, I made a shepherd's pie the other day with corn and I used chilies and lime and lemongrass and ginger, and then I did a sweet potato top. So it was kind of,
Leslie, can I tell you, you've got our taste buds going there. So look, thank you very much indeed. I know we've had the programme moving around, but thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Leslie, thank you.
Thank you.
So coming up on GB News, we're going to cross live to the Conservative Spring Conference, where we'll hear from Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. You can also let us know your thoughts in reaction to their speeches. Contact us on gbviews at gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews. Don't go away.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to the Saturday selection. We go to Blackpool now, where it's the last day of the Conservative Party Spring Conference. Boris Johnson is set to close the event.
Also scheduled to speak in this hour, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and Defence Secretary Ben Wallace. In the interest of balance, we broadcast from other major party conferences, so this is why GB News is bringing you this today. Tom Harwood, GB News political correspondent, is in Blackpool. It even looks sunny in Blackpool, Tom, for goodness sake.
Always is.
Are you sure you're in Blackpool, Tom? It doesn't look like Blackpool to me. What we're likely to hear from those big hitters later on?
Well, do you know what? It's been the most glorious weather here in Blackpool, especially yesterday. It was incredible sunshine. I saw International Trade Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan having a sneaky ice cream on the beach. It was so sunny. But no, today we're hearing from some of the biggest beasts in the cabinet. Of course, we heard from Priti Patel just moments ago, talking about mainly sanctions on Russia, the economic crime bill, which of course passed last week. What we're doing to kick out dirty Russian money from London and the UK in general. But also this hour we're going to be hearing from the Defence Secretary, of course a very heavy Ukraine focus there, from the Foreign Secretary, again the war dominating, and then the Prime Minister, who will try and wrap everything up, wrap these 2 days of conference up in a coherent message to galvanise the troops, because let's not forget this conference here, this spring conference, the first spring conference that the Tories have held in quite a long time. Under previous Prime Ministers they were holding what was called Spring Forum, which was a sort of a lesser degree than this more substantive conference aimed at gearing up that activist base, training activists too, and getting ready for future electoral events. Of course, in May, the 5th of May, for those local elections, very important set of elections, and the future general election, which we're hearing could be in 2 years' time.
Tom, thank you so much for that. I hope you get a chance to have an ice cream for yourself before the next speech is on. We'll come back to you later.
Right, it's time now to take a closer look at the stories, what's hitting the papers today. We've got Frank McKenna, who's the founder of Downtown in Business. Thanks for joining us here, and give us your selection from today's papers.
Yeah, well, obviously, big scandal going on in the workplace P&O and the storm that surrounded the sackings that they announced this week, and clearly a very unethical approach that they've taken. But also what P&O's bosses have done very cynically is basically looked at the cash flow situation here, and they knew that had they gone through the proper processes of consultation with the trade unions and the workforce, then actually that costs more than the fines and the compensation that they will inevitably pay. But it's going to take at least 12 months for these workers to get their day in court. And I think this is where we need to have a balance about employment law and where we're at in this country at the moment, because business does often, and in this case absolutely rightly, get a bad press. But equally, I'm aware that our members are facing increasing problems with employment tribunal law. It's far easier now for people to take vexatious claims out against people. There's no win, no fee solicitors. Insurance companies have obviously jumped on the bandwagon. So now you often have situations where a company would rather settle out of court, even if they know they're in the right, because it's cheaper, both in terms of resource and in terms of paying solicitors' fees. An individual often can go to a tribunal without any legal representation, or, as I say, on a no-win, no-fee basis. An absolutely extreme case, which was highlighted in People Management magazine this week, is a guy who has now been banned from tribunal services after making more than 40 vexatious claims in an 8-year period. This guy hadn't even worked for the companies he was taken to court. He'd simply been refused interviews. Okay. And on the back of that, again, you tick a particular box, whether it be racial discrimination, disability discrimination. Employers, quite rightly, absolutely scared stiff of reputational damage and the inevitable cost that this could potentially lead to. And this guy raked in a fair amount of cash before somebody in the tribunal service said, hang on, this guy's taking the mickey. But I tell you, there's thousands of these cases in the system. It's blocked up the court, it's blocked up tribunal system. And for the fairness of both employer and employee, the government really does need to take a serious look at employment law.
And I think that's when they did, because they thought we'd move it out of the tribunal service, as it were, and they've moved it into an insurance service, as it were. And that's why people are going, as your business members do, gosh, it's easier to pay out than actually go through the whole process. It's a bit like the whiplash sort of car situation, in a way. It was easier to sort of pay out than it was to find out the rights and wrongs of a situation. But this now is more wrong than right, and it needs to be sorted out.
Even if you win the case, you've still got to incur costs for your representation and all the rest of it.
It costs up to £15,000 just to defend a case.
Even if you win. But of course, I suppose what happened with P&O, people on the other side of the fence will say, well, hold on a minute, this shows that those rules and laws aren't stringent enough to protect employees. And, you know, I suppose P&O are giving all businesses a bad name in that.
But you've got here, haven't you? You've got both extremes, haven't you? Right. This P&O, absolutely the worst behaviour ever. It is an extreme, as it were. Even lawyers have said, although this is not impossible to do, it is absolutely the exception to the rule. What they've done is an absolute disgrace. You're looking at their books, so they're saying they were losing $100 million a year on this. The parent company, new parent company, DP World, have said, well, we're not going to stomach that. And because it is run outside this country, over in Dubai, Patrick Flynn in the Express today does a good analysis of it. People who run by different laws look after the people differently, see it differently, and they were purely not looking at the people, not looking at the families, not looking at the cost of living crisis, not looking after the staff who've worked for them for 30 years. They were purely saying, this doesn't work on our spreadsheet, and we now need to say, how do we protect those people? And I think we should, as a government, be saying, yes, you said you're going to pay out in enhanced settlements, but we actually need more than that. Get them new jobs. We have got over 1.3 million job vacancies, but you should do the training. We should hold them account for a lot more.
Frank, on this, the thing that strikes me about this is just the reputational damage that you do to your it's like trashing your brand, isn't it? Yeah. And presumably, customers will be voting with their feet. I would have thought lots of customers will think, well, I don't want to be associated, I'm not going to go with it. Do you not think that this sort of it might work for them in the short term, but is this not just going to trash their brand in the long term?
I think it's quite a remarkable set of circumstances when you consider the long-term impact on P&O, because certainly I wouldn't use the services again, and I'm sure there's many.
But you see, this is where, in a way, maybe they don't care if they trash P&O, because P&O cruises aren't owned by them. That's by a different Carnival, so they don't care if they trash the name, because that actually isn't them, and so the cruises are completely separate. And like I said, they're called DP World, so again, what do they care? So if they do trash the reputation, it's kind of not theirs. They can get rid of that name and move on.
And people have short memories as well, and they'll be hoping that that's the case in this particular situation. But the wider point I'd make here is, you know, you will often find big conglomerates can take action such as this, but then the small business owners are the people who are getting impacted by this, as I say, very unbalanced approach to employment law now. So, as I say, I think it's something the government needs to take a real serious look at, because on one extreme you're not able to protect workers in the way you wish, but equally you've got small business owners who are basically being ripped off.
Every week here on Saturday Selection, we like to speak to a familiar face about what they're up to and also ask them the question, what would you do if you ruled the world?
Imagine being in charge of the country just for one day and having the chance to change whatever you fancied.
Well, this week we're delighted to be joined by Chris Wright, who is the co-founder of Chrysalis Music and the Chrysalis Group, the man who gave us Blondie, Spandau Ballet, Jethro Tull, Ultravox, Procol Harum, all of these people. He is the person.
Chris, what would you do if
That's
you ruled
right.
the world? What would you do if you ruled the world, Chris?
Well, I thought about this. I mean, I'm not going to rule the world, but if I was making any changes in terms of the UK, I would do some things to tidy up Parliament a bit. I would bring in a law that the Prime Minister can only serve 2 voted-in terms. I would try and improve the quality of MPs. I would double their salary. That might be controversial, but I would double their salary. I think the more you pay, the better people you're going to get. But on the other side, I would say no outside jobs whatsoever. And all your investments have got to go into a blind trust for the period of time that you're a member of Parliament. What do you think about that?
Well, we're certainly up for doubling our pay, Chris. You're preaching to the converted there, I guess. The American system of only having 2 terms. My only concern is that we'd have missed out on a 3rd term of Mrs. Thatcher if we'd have gone down.
But he's only having his rule coming in from now, so we're all right. History is fine. I agree with you on that.
I know.
Positive there.
But it's not a bad idea overall. You know, in the real world, people have got limitations on the number of terms. Directors, 10 years, things like that. So, I don't think you can have a prime minister that serves ad infinitum. And of course, you say that it would have stopped the last Tony Blair term as well. Might have stopped the Iraq war.
I'm with you, Chris, because people frequently say you get removed from reality, you don't see the world as it is, and maybe all your greatest ideas you have used up anyway. And I will also say you are exhausted. You'll know what it's like, if you're in a 24/7 media cycle, all of these things that are happening now. You've had Brexit, you had COVID, you've now got Ukraine. The individual is absolutely exhausted. So in a way, a time-limited tenure, to me, I think, has to be the way forward. It might only be 1 term. It might not even be 2.
Yeah.
Well, I think I really have, having thought about it, I think it's a really, really good idea. And I think, we have some problems with our democracy, and it is something that we should really seriously consider.
Now, Chris, we wanted to speak to you. I mean, you are a music legend, and not just music. I mean, people probably don't also know the fact that you are the owner of Queen's Park Rangers and Wasps. You brought us Midsummer Murders. But of all those people that Esther was reeling off at the start, how certain were you that they were going to be successes, or did any of them particularly surprise you?
Well, I think when you start off in the music business, you've got a lot of real ambition. You've got a great deal of confidence in your own ability, and if you really like a group, you really are confident that you're going to be able to make them successful. And yes, I mean, obviously they're not always successful, but I must say at Chrysalis we had a very, very high success rate with the artists that we did work with, partly because I think we chose the right artists, and partly because I think we were pretty good at working with them and developing their talents on their behalf.
Chris, what I want to know is what was Blondie like? I mean, it was the girl or woman that every girl wanted to be, and it was also the girl every bloke probably wanted to date. But what was she like?
She's, first of all, extremely talented, and she wrote most of her own songs, or co-wrote almost all of her own songs. She has a great voice, an iconic look. She led a really great band.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry and clear, though turning chilly and remaining windy in the west. Let's take a look at the details. After a sunny but windy day in the southwest this evening, winds will ease, but it will turn a little cloudier across the south, clearer in the north, but feeling cooler. In the southeast, it will be a breezy end to the day, but cloudless skies will continue, still feeling cooler in the breeze along the coast. Moving over to South Wales, where we can expect this evening to be dry and fine, but breezy still and chilly off sunset. Now moving north to the Midlands, tonight will be dry with clear skies, though over the hills and in the east a fresh breeze will continue to bring a colder feel. Moving on to northeast England now, breezy on the hills this evening, but clear and dry for all. There could be the odd spot of fog in the valleys, and it will continue to feel cold. Across southern Scotland, it will also be a clear and dry night with the odd misty patch. However, over hills it will turn increasingly windy this evening. Finally, to Northern Ireland, a windy but clear evening. So if you are planning on enjoying the last of the sunshine here, you'll likely need a layer or two. For many, it will remain clear overnight with a touch of frost by the morning, but cloud will increase in some western areas. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.